Good morning. Welcome to the Visual Road and Bridge IMS webinar this morning. This morning we're going to cover the database tools. To access the database tools from the quickest menu, when it has focus, just enter D about 2 times to get to database tools. You also can access it through the utilities and database tools here. The database tools differs from the runtime file manager. The runtime file manager primarily used for data recovery and to fix any problems in the data store. But the database tools are primarily used to do specific operations on your data store. And use with care is important because you can do some damage by doing things you really don't intend to do. So before using any of these tools, it's always a pretty good idea to call us and we can walk you through the operation. Doesn't mean you can't use them on your own by any means, but it's always a little safer to call for a little advice before you go forward with it. The first tool in the software tool suite is the inventory cost basis. Now, this tool is used to do several different things. One is once you have an inventory usage history, it will calculate your average usage for each year of each inventory item. Before you do anything in the tools, you generally will have a first button which says save the inventory file. This will save the inventory file before you do any operations on it. Now if you want to next do the audit the purchases and issues, this goes through and looks at all the purchases and issues and makes sure everything is extended correctly. The system extends everything correctly, but sometimes things can get a little out of tolerance or whatever. So it's a utility will close this, a utility you can use. Now in the process of doing this, it also will calculate your average annual usage of each inventory item. So let's just say we've been running the system for 3 years. You'd enter a 3 in there. And this will run through all your purchases and issues and do some averages as well as verify each line item extension. So after auditing, then you recalculate your line items. And at this point, you can preserve the current line item basis or go to an audit, and you'll be able to see any variances from the standard costs that you've been costing your inventory out over the actual costs that have been calculated by going through this process of auditing. And what this shows us is the excuse me, the say hose clamps, the cost basis was 38 cents for each hose clamp, but the value is actually at $5.32. This looks at the total dollars for purchases and the total inventory items on hand, and then does a division to get your average basic. Now this is all test data, and you see a lot of wild swings in it. Here's another large one, whatever this item is. It was inventoried at $12.32 per unit, but once we ran through the inventory calculations, looked at the actual cost we're paying as well as the on hands, it actually is $49 per unit. Now another, this will generate a fairly long report, 30-page report. But let's look at the what we call our audit B. The audit B, we'll look at it, and it only looks at things that are out, say at greater than a 25% tolerance from standard cost. And you'll see a lot shorter. This is just 1 page. So it looks at the variances that are, much larger than that. So it cuts down and gives you a lot closer look. Now, most of these things are just due to all of our test data going in. But if you had, well, let's say these are hex nuts, and they were valued at 28 cents each. You just right or left click to expand it. 28 cents each. They actually are 19 cents each. by actual cost, they went down. So it would give you an idea to go and look at that particular inventory line item to see if maybe there was a purchase posting or unit use posting that was in error. You do a live lookup to the inventory, and the reason this takes a little longer, it looks and gives you a total count of line items in inventory, units, and total cost. If we were to look at the hose clamp here, by double clicking on it, pulls up that record, we'll see we don't have any activity, and that's why it got a bogus count on that one. So you can audit your inventory and stay within the same tool area. If you want to preserve the average historical cost, you would click this button, or if you want to return to the standard before you posted this, it will reverse the entry on the thing. So there are several different operations you can do. There's also a help attached, and give us a call if you do any inventory valuation. We call them meta adjustments because they're across the entire inventory. The edit database basically is a raw data scanner or database editor. We can open any file in the system. We'll look at the labor file. This would list all of your employees and then all of the raw data that you see when you go to the employee personnel table. So you can edit raw data. Not recommended that you use this, but you can do that if you want to. The conform purchases, this goes through and looks at all the purchases and then pulls an audit on all line item purchases and re-extends all the values. The sync shop work order totals looks at any shop work orders that have been posted into the cost accounting area. You post into it automatically when you use shop work orders, and you create a detailed line item that uses inventory. It detracts from there or subtracts from inventory. The sync purchases, that's another that just looks at the purchases. Fresh and cost and fund accounting, this goes through and re-extends all the values. The delete cost and fund records. Now this utility, you first want to archive your data. These are near instantaneous, the reason you don't see any little thermometer run across the screen. What this will do is let you balance the inventories before you delete any records, and then you reset the ending inventory balances, and then you can delete. If you have a whole lot of records you don't want any longer, you can delete a date range of records and then delete key, and then rebalance the inventory after you go through this process, and it gives you a clean data set. Just you can get rid of 100,000 or 500,000 or whatever records if you don't want to keep them for historical means. It's always a good idea before you do this to do a complete copy of the road and bridge and all the data files and plunk it over into a new folder. And then if you ever want to refer back to any records that you've deleted, you can always look at the old system. The update project ID, this basically goes through, looks at all the project and reties all of the detail records to the project that it's selected. The shop work order integrity looks at all your shop postings and goes through it automatically and re-verifies everything. You can reclassify fiscal year. We wrote this utility several years ago. When people roll into a new fiscal year, sometimes they won't get their correct fiscal year on the records they're entering. They keep the old fiscal year and don't reset the default. So you can go in and reclassify any records to the correct fiscal year this way. Saves a whole lot of key entry work. When we first wrote that utility, we had a county that had, I think it was around 10,000 records they had entered before they realized they hadn't set their default forward. 10,000 corrections would take forever, but this little utility fixed it all in about 30 seconds. The update Road Street Master Plan, that ties in with the Road Street table. This will recalculate all the cost accounting totals, goes through and re-extends everything and re-verifies. There were no errors on that, so it didn't find any errors to correct. Refresh indexes and INIs. Sometimes if you have any indexes on the DBF files which you use to communicate to GIS, by clicking this, it'll reset those, and then you can rebuild them when you re-enter the system. You need to run this, then exit Road and Bridge, and then restart Road and Bridge. You can validate your complaints. That's all automatic also. The HHREG, Windows or Microsoft, once they moved everybody over to the .ch, or recommended everybody move to .chm help files, then locked out accessing the CHM help files across the network unless you modify your registry. And what this does is let you modify your registry. You can add all of our CHM files, those are help files, are located in the help folder on the Road and Bridge system, wherever you happen to have it running. We've got J, Y, and R plumbed in here. And generally there's two help files, the updates and the Visual RB. The Visual RB is the main help file, and the updates is a little file that you see when you click here and look at the version updates to keep you current on all the version updates. So basically what you would do is add a file from whatever system you're actually sitting on at the time. Then you would navigate out to the Road and Bridge folder, to the help folder, and it could be at any number of places out on any of your drives or network connections. Go to the Road and Bridge folder, whatever you have it named, and then under the help folder, you will then see our CHM files, and you just click on one, click open, and then it will add it to this listing. What this does is tell the registry on the computer you're on that it's okay to access the help file that's out on whatever drive it's happened to be known as. The equipment number, this is a little utility we wrote a few years ago. If you have a current equipment number and you want to change it to a new equipment number, you can do that, and it also reassociates all of the detail records that are associated with it, and you can run them over a certain date to date. The op locks, normally by clicking this, it will disable opportunistic locking on the server, and it might increase your performance. If you have any corruption problems or performance problems, clicking on this sometimes will correct it. The RSWO updates the road classification to recurring work orders, and that pretty much runs through the software tools, and you can access, I believe I covered this, you can go to the database tools. Later on, when we get into the R listing on our quickest menu, we'll cover the file recovery utility.